episode number 1
Here we go,
of the
baby.
Two Takes podcast. We are finally here. It's been a long time,
It's been a long time.
but we made it.
Dude, we've been wanting to do this for forever now.
Yes.
I mean, how long have you been wanting to start a podcast now?
I would say since the end of high school.
Dude, easily for me too.
You know?
Watching all of them and everything, watching everybody else, and it just seems like a fun thing to do. And I mean, so far, I've had a blast with it. About you?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. People don't realize all the work that goes into this.
Oh my gosh.
And, we've been delayed a little bit on our
We have
time
been.
frame.
Yeah.
We've always said, do it right or don't do it at all. And we took our time and we're here.
Yeah, we did, dude. I mean, well, your trip, my trip, we've been going all over the place and everything. That's definitely had a big effect on it. But
Yes.
I mean, when did we officially come together? When was that? We came together and said we want to do this podcast. Let's go all in on it.
I want to say February.
Yeah, it was February. It was beginning of February.
Yeah, so it's been about 3 months of
Yeah.
preparation and
Getting all the equipment and everything like that. I mean, it was
Yeah.
quite the journey there for a second.
we've had our hiccups and ups
Yeah.
and downs. But
Speaking of hiccups, how about cicadas on the first episode? We hope that you guys can't hear it, but they are roaring outside right now.
absolutely crazy.
And it's coming in waves. Like the sound, it's like a wave. All of a sudden they get really quiet for a second and we think that they're gone, and then they come roaring back louder than they were before.
Now, I will say, if you noticed when it rains, they're actually very quiet for most of the day.
Yeah, they are quiet. I mean, not many people like rainy days, but it seems like a good time to like rainy days.
They're just like us in that asset.
Yeah. Although me and Harv both, those fall cloudy days where it's just kind of like 65,
Yeah.
little breeze to it, not much sun. I do enjoy those days. Now I love summer too,
Me too.
getting out by the pool and everything like
Yes.
that. But man, I do like fall. But
I'm with you. I think overcast, if it's not a bright, sunny, warm day, I would have to pick overcast as my next best.
yeah, I would have to agree with that. No rain though. I don't
No
want
rain.
I don't like it. So I think that the worst part about the fall and the winter is when it rains and that wetness in the grass and everything, and it's all muddy, it just never leaves.
Yes, I'm with you.
You hit a period when the winter's coming up where it rains or something like that, and it is practically wet on the ground until the next spring, really, and then it's raining a bunch, really, like the next
Yes.
summer.
I mean, I feel like we're kind of seeing that right now. They say April showers bring May flowers.
Yeah.
And here we are in June, and it's still raining.
Still raining, yeah.
I get it's not summer yet, but we're pretty much there, and it is still raining.
Man, it feels good, though.
It does.
The summer feels good. I've been looking forward to that forever. Although, what's it going to look like with the cicadas? Like, do they keep getting worse? Because I've heard for the past 2 months about these cicadas, and everybody's like, oh, it's horrible, it's horrible.
Yep.
We were too young to remember. How old were we, 3 or something like that? Was
Around
it-
there, yeah.
How long? 2004, right?
Yes.
2004. So I don't remember anything about it. I don't know if
I don't remember much. I do remember just being out there and, like, as a kid, you wanted
Yeah.
to play with them. Like, it was one of those things. And I've noticed the kids in the neighborhood, even they're out there and they're running around and, like, looking for them on the trees. And, like,
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I want no part of them. I am running away from
See,
them.
I like them. I think they're kind of cool.
I don't see that side of things.
So, like, I don't remember where it was, but my older brother had a baseball game way back in the day. And I was with my buddy Nick Urbis, and we were running around the baseball game, and they were covering the entire lawn. And we were finding, like, old styrofoam cups and McDonald's cups, and we were just filling them full of cicadas. And actually, some people came up from the other team and bought the cups off of us that we filled because apparently they're really good fishing bait.
And I've heard that they're actually a delicacy in the Northeast. People cook them up and eat them.
Really, they do. So
Yes.
this time of the year, although,
But they don't
we were
get
looking
'em.
at it. Yeah, they don't get
They
them as
don't
much,
get
do
'em.
they? We pulled it up right before the podcast. We were like, man, how many states does this reach across? And according to the Smithsonian magazine, it says it reaches all the way up to, looks like New York and just a little bit beyond it. Is that Massachusetts on the right side? It looks like they get a little bit in Massachusetts. So like right in that New York area, then that's where it's a delicacy at.
Yeah, but then it just cuts off above there.
That's crazy.
People
so like,
love them.
Is it temperature for them? Like, what is it? I mean, they're spanning 14 states. That's a pretty large geographic area.
So it's actually said, I remember last week when they were actually pretty crazy, they got quiet when it got cold. We had that whole last
Yeah.
week where it was cold
Yeah,
at
the
night
cold front.
in the morning, and they were nowhere to be seen. So apparently they don't like the cold, so maybe by the water, too cold, with the wind, I don't really know.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I think they're unbelievable, though. I remember we came outside of the office just a couple weeks ago when I was mulching the house, and there was probably 1,000 holes right in front of
Yes.
our office right there, just
Yes.
always placed as far as the eye can see. I was like, man, they must be coming. But at that point, and still to this day, I haven't heard, or I've heard a couple at our house, but I haven't seen any flying around. But when I came to pick you up, I came
Yes.
to pick up Harv today, and literally they were flying around all over the place.
They're everywhere.
And we
I mean,
live 1 mile from each other.
Yes.
And I
Very
didn't see
close.
any.
It's crazy where they're at and where they're not. I mean, my grandparents, they don't have any either. And it feels so bizarre when I'm talking to other people. I'm like, man, dude, I probably stepped on 12 cicadas just walking to my
Yeah.
car. And they're like, what do you mean? They're not even out yet. And I'm like, they're out.
See,
They're out.
I'm that person then, because I see them when I come here. We can hear them roaring here.
Yeah.
I saw them flying all over the place at your house, and apparently they're attracted to noise significantly, and it's like lawnmowers and stuff like that they
Mm-hmm. Right.
come on to. But around my house, like it's non-existent.
Hey, man, enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah,
Next week's the peak.
that is true.
And then they start
Apparently,
to fade away.
although once again the peak has been coming for 2 months now, where everyone's like, "Oh, next week is when
Yep.
they come out. Next week is when they come out." I don't know if it
Yes.
was that cold that prolonged them or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, but I didn't see any of them.
No, they weren't. And that was the annoying part because they're here for, 6 weeks?
Yeah,
Is that right?
Or late,
And
yeah.
it's just like, all right, they're going to be here tomorrow. And then it's just a countdown for 6 weeks. And then tomorrow
Yeah.
comes and they're not here. And then it's like, all right, they'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then the 6 weeks just continues to get prolonged.
Throughout the summer. So I mean, like around 4th of July, what are we looking at? Do you have any idea? I mean, I'm really not like super well educated on the cicada season. I mean, every 17 years, it is interesting. Every 17
Very.
years.
Like, what are they doing underground for that long?
Man, I don't know.
I would love to be underground to see.
Yeah, I would too. And how many of them there are to survive that long under there? I mean, it has to be freezing the farther you burrow down
Yeah.
into the ground. It has to be cold down there. So they
You'd
must go
think.
into some sort of hibernation or
Yeah.
something like that.
I mean, I just think it's crazy strictly how many there are.
Yeah.
I mean, you see them, but then you don't really realize, like, there's millions
Yeah.
of these things just flying around everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, 14 states have them. And we feel like here we have all of them.
Yeah.
Like, really.
Yeah, they'll be all over the place. And like their red eyes, man. The way that they
Yeah.
look at you. Although I differ from Harv. I like them. I think they're really interesting and cool. I've eaten some of them, which they're honestly not bad. Just like a little crunchy. There's not a whole lot of flavor to them. Have you seen that there's a bunch of recipes online. You can throw them in the oven, bake them for about 20 minutes, come out. They say throw a little Parmesan cheese on them, little garlic, little salt and pepper, and apparently they don't taste bad.
Now, you see, I don't want anything to do with them, so I would never look up a recipe to eat them.
Oh, I was all over them. I was reading all about the recipes.
That would require me to catch them.
You won't touch them?
No.
You squish them?
Yes.
Well, there's so many of them.
You can't avoid it. I mean, you walk through
Yeah.
the grass, you're stepping on them. I mean, my
That's the only
dogs.
time. I'll grab them. I'll just relocate them somewhere
you?
else. Although when there's this many, you're not gonna be able to do that.
You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, my dogs, they're loving life right now. I mean, they're not supposed to eat them. Apparently, they're bad for them. But
Yeah,
I mean,
that's something new. I mean, if this is only every 17 years, then I mean, we're not gonna be talking about cicadas very often.
Right.
But I had no idea until I saw it on the local news. It said that dogs are not supposed to eat cicadas and
Yeah.
do not let them. But you said that.
well, try to corral the dogs from being outside. I mean, we've got a fenced-in yard,
Yeah.
and I'm not even kidding. They just walk the fence line the entire day. And I mean, the things, they're not the brightest.
Yeah.
I mean, they fall out of the tree, and then the dogs are like running
Yeah.
after them. I mean, the dogs will fight
Well-
over who gets to eat them. I mean, it is crazy. Like, I've never seen anything like it.
Well, you know that they can't be that smart because when you go to pick them up, they just let you.
Right.
Like most bugs are taken off on you before you can even get close to them, but those ones you just go down and grab them by their back, and they do that thing with their arms where
Yeah,
they're just like
yeah.
scrolling around for a
They
second.
just, I mean, the other day I was watching. I mean, you can't contain the dogs. Like,
No,
you have to
there's
just,
no way.
we just limit their time outside because you can't stop them from eating them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're everywhere. And there was one, and my one dog was like chasing after it. You know how when an object is flying or thrown their way, it becomes a game.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're all about it.
So she got one in her mouth. It was still alive. And before she could even chomp down on it, she had her mouth. The thing flew out of her mouth. And her tail just started wagging like crazy. And then she chased after it.
Chasing after all of them, then
Yes.
probably, yeah.
And the second time she got her mouth on it, it didn't end well for the cicada.
Oh, I bet it
but,
didn't.
I mean, it is impossible to keep them from hunting
Yeah.
them. I mean, their noses are just in the ground, just hunting.
Well, yeah. So I have a dog too, but she, like I said, it's not around our house, so she hasn't seen any of them yet. So I don't know how she's gonna react. I've seen her. She usually doesn't chase around many bugs though. Like if there's bees flying around, she'll glance at them, and maybe one time I've seen her try and take a bite at a bee flying through the air, which is first off not easy to catch, and second off probably wouldn't end well for her. She'd probably get a big old stinging in the mouth, and she
That's
probably
true.
wouldn't try to eat bees anymore. Maybe if she ate a bee, got stung, she wouldn't eat any cicadas then.
Could be.
But we'll find out if she tries to chase around the cicadas. You know what she does like though?
What's that?
Rabbits.
Really?
Yeah, we have had probably 3 or 4 nests of rabbits make nests in our backyard in the ground. Mm-hmm. And usually, graphic content, you see her coming around the corner with like usually they're dead by the time she even gets to them because most of the baby rabbits don't survive. But there's usually she comes around with a baby rabbit in her mouth and she eats it. And we never know it's going to happen until we see a baby rabbit somewhere and we're like, oh, Mac got to the nest.
Yeah.
But you'd think that survival, the rabbits, they can smell the dog around. You'd think, they have to come. We have a fence as well in our backyard. They'd have to come in through the fence and then smell her and then still put their thing right there. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
The other day, so speaking of animals, our dogs, I guess there's a mice den somewhere in our neighbor's yard or something. I mean, we found 3 of them in our pool floating around.
Really?
And our dog ended up with one of them.
from the pool like
from
found
the
in the grass?
Yeah, in the grass. And it was one of those things where the dog came back inside and had like the blood like on its like chin line.
Oh,
in her hair.
All gnarly.
Yeah, and it was not a pretty scene.
No, dude, it's nature, but it's gruesome sometimes when these dogs get a hold of stuff. Have you ever heard when they talk about like now this is more I think with like people and other dogs, but they say if you have an aggressive dog and it gets in a fight, they say when they get that first taste of blood. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the case with the small rabbits and stuff like that. I mean, for gosh sakes, it's what they were born and bred to do. I mean, it's what they were practically created for, was hunting like that.
Right.
But when they get their hands on something, a rodent or something smaller than them that they can toss around, it's usually not pretty.
Yeah,
it's usually not a great sight.
I think even when you see them playing with a toy and they do like that tugging like head twirl, and you're just like, I mean, that's for hunting.
Yeah,
like they're there to get an animal, and like that's how they would kill it.
I mean, we lived in the developed world, and there's a lot of this world that's still undeveloped in which they'd have dogs like that running around hunting. I mean, what would that scene look like if we had our normal houses right now, but there were just stray dogs all over the place? Nobody even had them in their houses, and they were just hunting all the time. You might live your life even a little bit differently.
Yeah, it'd probably be a little more scary.
Yeah, I mean,
watch yourself.
Double up the coyotes. Just imagine that in your head. I mean, triple, quadruple, who knows how many numbers, and make some of them bigger and slightly more aggressive. I mean, I've seen some big dogs. They're like wolves, and I'm like, man, I wouldn't want to fight that thing.
But have you ever seen a coyote?
Yeah, I have seen a couple of them.
They're really. I saw my first one when I was on my trip in Connecticut, and I was shocked about how small they actually were. Like, I expected it to be, I guess I was thinking it was more like a wolf where it was bigger. Yeah. But, like, they're really not that big, but they're just so violent.
I've seen a couple big ones that were, but they're still, they're not what you imagine. Like, we all read the books or, like, throughout school and stuff, when we look at wolves, you're like, man, they're massive. They're enormous, and you automatically associate coyotes with those wolves just because they're, like wild dogs, kind of similar, related. But then you see a coyote, and they really aren't that big. But they are aggressive, and rabies and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it could be a pet.
Yeah.
Like, if you saw one, like, out of, like, the corner of your eye, you're like, oh, there's a dog right there.
And
like,
you want to hear something?
Sure.
Somebody has that as a pet right now. Somewhere,
for sure.
Somewhere in this country, somebody has a coyote.
For sure.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, I feel like you could, I mean, it's like anything. You could train it.
Yeah.
You know, people have exotic animals all the time. It's just, can you train them?
Well, it's also years of like selective breeding and stuff. Even like I'm sure whoever the first person was to get that coyote probably didn't have a very nice coyote, but if they were able to breed it and down the line, domesticate them, then that's what they're called. They call them like domestic, whatever, exotic animals, because they've been breeded and selected over time to be less like their natural selves, which is often hostile, aggressive, and trying to survive.
Who knows? Maybe that's where we're heading. Pet coyotes are the future.
Dude, maybe. I don't know. Could you imagine, though?
You would never be able to trust it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, would they prefer to be around other coyotes? Could they even see other coyotes? I mean, like, a lot of times, don't they travel in packs as well? Yeah, so, like, what would that be like trying to get them away from the pack? I mean, dogs are used to packs as well, but that's been bred out of them a little bit over time. But even in your family unit, I mean, that's still considered a pack. But
that would be interesting to see if they saw another pack of coyotes. What would they do?
Yeah.
Do they see that as an enemy, or do they see that as their blood?
Right now, if it's not their pack, it's going to probably be an enemy, or at least they would try to avoid them, I bet, if they all could. I mean, look at like a dog in your neighborhood. If you're just taking your dog on a walk and you see another dog, and who knows if that dog is a little bit more aggressive, it's raising its hair, it doesn't like your dog for whatever reason that happens. I mean, I would love if we could get something to just be able to read their brain wavelengths, whatever signals, whatever they're thinking. I want to know.
I'm with you. I mean, I think and they have their own cues, and like you can see like if their tail's down or whatever, they're sad or whatever. But like, what if you could read a mind or even a bark?
Yeah.
But then doesn't that kind of take away the whole dog? Then it's just it becomes almost like a human.
Almost like a human.
Yeah.
Although I will say, dude, my dog is one of the coolest dogs I've ever seen. She is like a human. Like, she has her own personality, and she gets ticked off at us, and she gets upset with us. If we're packing bags, she knows that we're leaving, and she gets like really, really upset with us about it. Like, won't let us pet her and everything like that. It's crazy. But I can only imagine. I swear sometimes, though, they can talk.
They know what's going on.
Yeah, when you're sitting there alone with them and you're just making eye contact, and I'm like, I can feel what you're thinking, and I know that you want to say something to me right now.
It's crazy. In general, like, even when you just, like, when a dog wants food, they'll, like, scratch on our kitchen cabinet. Or,
your dogs do?
Yeah. Like, not even where the food is. They just, like, find a door or a cabinet and just scratch on it.
Really?
And, like, that's, like, the immediate sign that they want food.
See, that's unbelievable.
And it's just, like, as much as we train them, they train us.
Yeah.
To, like, follow their lead almost.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I want food. I want out.
Right.
Let me in.
I mean, they
they
bang on the door.
Yeah.
I mean, if you open a certain closet in our house, like, they go crazy because they think they're going for a walk.
Oh, really?
Like, it's just the smallest things, but they're so intelligent.
Yeah.
That they can basically train us. Like, when you do this, that means
follow
this
my
for me.
lead. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, and also, if you look back at it, we trained that in them because, through potty training and all that stuff, that, hey, when we open up the door, when we're by the door, you're going out and everything, so they know that that's where they need to go and everything. But have you ever seen the dogs that, like, open the door handles and stuff? I mean, how do the people get them to do that?
It's amazing. I mean, we normally would, like, go to training, like, seminars or sessions.
Oh, you did?
With our dogs, and, like, this new one that we just got, I was like, man, like, I want to train this one. Like, this is going to be my dog. And it's tough.
It is hard.
Like it's not, like, the hardest thing. She's a very intelligent dog, but, like, just the smallest things, like, you can sit, you can lay down, but, like, what else do you teach? Like, I mean, you can roll over or whatever, but, like, opening a door?
Yeah,
How
I don't
do
know.
you teach that?
That gets the next level stuff.
It is. Like, how do you teach it?
Back to the other thing. My dog is the same way with the walking and stuff, that we can't even say that word in our house.
We can't either.
Because our dog goes flying to the door and goes crazy. She knows when my dad puts on a certain pair of shoes. He could be upstairs. When he comes down in a certain pair of shoes, she's right on his hip and will not leave him because she thinks she's going on a walk.
So my dad, when he would take the dogs for a walk in the winter, he would wear, like, his mask for COVID. And as soon as he would put that around his neck, they were there.
Really?
Always. Like, they just, like, knew, like, it was cold, it was winter. If he put on a certain sweatshirt, they would go crazy.
Yeah. Well, you know something? This is kind of a little bit unrelated, but you know something that is a good thing about the mask that's a little bit underrated in the wintertime was that it kept you warmer.
It did.
When you're walking around in, like, 30 degrees or below and it's really cold outside and you have that mask on, for some reason it's the breath, the hot vapor, I don't know what it is. It's almost like wearing a hat. If you had both on, that kept you pretty warm.
Honestly,
in the wintertime.
In the future, I wouldn't be surprised if people started adapting that.
Seriously. Because put them on, especially the gaiters and everything.
It became so normal, and it, like, covers your neck. You don't have to wear a hood.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in between a scarf and a hat.
Yeah.
And it just kind of fits perfectly because it goes up halfway past your face, and you can still talk, you can still breathe fine. Like,
I'll tell you what, I was a little bit ahead of the game on that one because I have asthma. And so when it's really cold in the wintertime and the cold triggers my asthma a little bit, I would always wear some sort of face shield or face covering when I'd run around outside. For whatever reason, the warmer air worked better with the lungs than the colder air, and so that would help me prevent, like, asthma attacks or getting asthmatic when I was running around.
it's all about knowing yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
I would always wear the ski masks just because like it covers your entire face. And
Yeah.
You've got like the nose and mouth hole and eyes. And,
Yeah, like when you're going out for recess in
or,
third grade.
or you're going to shovel the snow and it's
Yeah,
windy
yeah.
and you're throwing it and it just
Yeah.
blows back into your face. Like
Well,
you
now
just need something.
Now at this point, like when I'm going sledding or something like that, I refuse to not wear something over my face because every time I go without one, I go flying down the hill. I get to the bottom and my face is like an icicle covered, and I'm like, why would I not just wear something?
And there's no worse feeling when you get that like redness and you're just like, it burns. Like
Burns,
you're
stings.
so cold, it burns.
Yeah.
There's no worse feeling.
No worse feeling in the world. And we have a creek down at the bottom of our hills where we normally go sledding at as a family. And that water, it's really difficult to freeze. It has to be really cold. But there's a couple times where you'll end up, if you mess up and you don't bail fast enough, you'll end up in that water, dude, and you're just stinging for like 30 minutes
Yep.
afterwards trying to get warm. You almost have to just call it a night and go home when something like that happens, because once it takes you over, there's no getting like warm
You
again.
can't.
Yeah.
Once you feel it for the first time, like it sits there for a while, and like you get it on your hands or your feet, and it's just like you can put as many pairs of socks on or gloves on, and it does not matter. You can put
No,
your hands under water.
Yeah.
There is nothing but time that can fix that.
And the worst feeling is when you feel like your hands are getting like swollen after it gets really cold like that, and they're warming up again, and it's like that weird numb,
Yeah.
swollen. Do you ever get itchy? I get itchy
Yeah,
sometimes.
every once in a
Itchy
while.
feeling like when they're really cold or like you forgot gloves or something like that. I hate that feeling.
I think in general being cold is one of the worst feelings that there is. I think
Yeah.
I would rather be way hot rather than way cold unless I'm sleeping.
That's always unless you're sleeping.
Unless I'm sleeping. I would rather be way cold sleeping, but I would rather
Yeah.
be hotter than colder, like
So-
winter versus summer.
I'm a little bit different. Like if I'm just talking about around the house, I usually prefer cold. I like it like freezing. And at night, I'm one of those people in the wintertime when I'm sleeping, it's got to be freezing. I'm talking like fan just blasting me
I'm
in the
with you.
face. Even in the wintertime, I'll crack my window open just a little bit so it's just like chilled my room. You walk in, sometimes you can see your breath a little bit. I like that a lot. But the typical question is always that survival scenario. Would you rather be in the desert or somewhere freezing cold with, whatever instruments or knife and
Right.
fire starter, whatever you had? What would you rather have?
I think I'd rather be in the desert.
Really?
I think you can contain heat, but if you end up in a cold situation and then you get like hypothermia or something,
Yeah.
like you're done. I mean, sure you can get overexhausted or over sweat in the sun and the heat in the desert, but man, I think I'd rather be hot than cold.
It's something to think about because that number one thing is always water. Cause
It is.
It's amazing how long the human body can go without food.
That is
We can
true.
survive like a month without food, but water, I mean, you're looking at, it puts it in the hours. Like you got like a couple days tops before you're starting to, you start like hallucinating, your body starts shutting down and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, in the desert, that's an iffy shot on if you're actually going to end up finding any. But in the winter, if you're somewhere really cold, there's a good chance there's going to be some sort of snow around. And if not, there's going to be some river running or something like that where you can at least ensure that you'd have water.
Yeah.
Food, a little bit more difficult.
It is.
But,
It's kind of iffy. It's what you kind of prefer.
yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. I mean,
Although I don't prefer either.
I like comfort.
Yeah, I'd prefer to not be in that scenario. But if if you thought about it, I think about that stuff.
I feel like you have to. I mean,
Yeah.
you could get stranded anywhere at
Yeah.
any time.
Dude, even when I'm like, if I'm getting in the car, we're going on a road trip somewhere, or like if I'm getting on a plane or something like that, I just think about like, man, if this went down, what are the things that I need to do to be able to survive?
I am totally with you, and I feel like it's a horrible mindset to look at. But like, if you're
Yeah.
like, if this went down, what are we landing on?
Yeah.
Is there a body of water, or are we going into
Yeah.
a major city?
Well, and it's not costing you anything. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm not stressing about it. I'm not
No.
like anxious, like, oh man, is this plane going to go down? I don't get those types of feelings. But I'm just like, man, if it did, how could I best be ready for that scenario?
Right. I feel like it's always better to be prepared. I mean, flying is statistically the safest way to travel.
Yeah,
So,
isn't
like,
that crazy, though, as a
really,
thought?
You really don't have to worry about it, but at the same time, like, it never hurts to be prepared.
I mean, and it really wasn't that long ago that we figured out flying.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like 100-something years. Like, that is not a long time to be flying, but it's safer than the automobile.
Yeah.
That's I mean, statistically speaking, I mean, if you're talking about amongst crashes, how many people survive, you're not looking good if you're going down in a plane or something like
Correct.
that. I mean, car crashes, they've really come a long way, even since we've been alive in the past 20 years or so with cars and safety in cars. I mean, they're unbelievable now what they can do.
Yeah.
But planes, how? I mean, you're sending a mass load of cargo, hundreds of people, 30,000 plus feet up into the air at hundreds of miles an hour.
Yeah.
And they land safely almost every time. That actually, and the majority of crashes happen when you're either taking off or landing. That's like where the crashes practically only happen, statistically speaking.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, the technology in general. I mean, and I think we're starting to see, like, people are finally realizing, like, maybe cars aren't the safest thing. Maybe it's the people that are behind the wheel, or maybe it's just, in general, when you have that many people transporting on highways every day from to and from work, and it's just, I mean, now we're seeing it with the self-driving cars. I mean, they clearly want that to be the future.
Yeah, well, clearly. I mean, Uber, Lyft, all those organizations are working towards, I mean, they started literally at the beginning with the goal in mind that someday they want autonomous vehicles driving people around. And I say go for it. I mean, if you can do it any better, I love driving around, though. I like having the control of the car. I feel like I'm a good driver. For the most part. I mean, everyone has their own flaws and stuff when you're driving around, but I feel like I'm pretty good at it. But the thing is, you can't trust other people on the road.
You can't. And I think that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you can be the best driver in the world, but you can't control how the person in the lane over from you is going to react if something happens. And like, that's where it comes into danger. And that's why I think, in general, it's really only safe if everybody has automated driving, because if it's like 5 people have it and the other people are still driving, like, does it really solve any problems? Probably not.
Well, something that even my father's talked about before with like highways and stuff, like you were talking about, and traffic and everything. He was like, what if someday they figured out how, almost like Bluetooth connectivity, that cars, when they get on the highway, plug into something and they all communicate with each other so that they can figure out how to properly change lanes and where they're going and what speed they need to be going at, so that practically traffic is no longer a thing, because like you could be merging with only like an inch on either side of your car from the other cars because they communicate with each other so well.
That would be cool.
That's almost like, if you've seen the movie, what is it? Robots or whatever. It's with Will Smith.
I've not.
You haven't seen that one? Well, he gets on the highway there, and it's almost like all tunnels in that movie, but all the cars are flying around, and they're all like super close to each other. It's unbelievable, and I could see something like that happening someday.
One day.
Here.
I feel like that'd be terrifying.
Yeah,
like,
it would be.
In the beginning, you're just like, we're literally an inch away from this car. Like, you can't even control anything either, but it's like, if the technology's there.
Technology's scary, too. I mean, anything that's ever come out, whether it be phones, laptops, whatever, flight, cars, everybody was as scared of it at first, and then eventually catches on. Even social media. I mean, people weren't getting on social media at first. And do you remember how much education we had on like avoiding strangers online and all that stuff? It's all scary, but then over time it takes over. I mean, every kid that I know now practically has an iPad from the time they're born, almost like they get them those going on the little tablets and stuff like that. It's unbelievable.
But I mean, now I think from when we were growing up to even now, which isn't that long, I mean, having technology and where the world is going, I think starting technology from a young age is good and bad. Yeah. Because it can create an addiction, which is, I feel like a lot of people have that. I would say most of us
I would say almost everyone.
Yeah, but
everyone.
At the same time, like, learning those skills involved in technology from a younger age, like a Photoshop or like a video editing, like that can be crucial for a job search in the future.
Well, you can look at it that way, job search, but also, I mean, just as our ancestors had to learn how to hunt and how to find their food and things they could eat, things they couldn't. I mean, it's almost like essential to survival now that you are able to work technology in some way, shape, or form, unless you are raised and live in an environment where that's still not the case. But here in this world where we live right now in Cincinnati, Ohio, I mean, it's practically a part of your everyday life. You have to at least have some knowledge of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's really what runs the world. It is what runs the world.
And it's been tough. I mean, I'm sure it's been tough for older populations. I mean, think about that. If you grew up through the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and now today you got to adjust to all this new technology and stuff. I mean, I understand why so many of our grandparents and older people like that just like are like, I don't want anything to do with it.
But I also think it's interesting how many do adapt to it.
It is very interesting.
My grandparents love it.
So my grandparents have adjusted as well too recently to having a smartphone and everything like that and regular communication, which has been nice.
It is nice when you can actually just text them. Like, I feel like the transition from calling to texting, even email,
Yeah.
it kind of makes things that much easier, because a call, you're kind of stuck in one position at one time. If you're not available, I mean, you could text or email someone and be fine. But for calling, you got to be in one spot. You got to be available. You got to have a time slot.
Although there are certain times where you're just like, man, I have to call you. Yeah. You're like, hey, we need to talk on the phone. I can't text this right now. There's too much, or it's just too complicated. I don't know how to word it. We have to talk on the phone.
Right, for sure.
There's times for that.
Absolutely. I mean, because texting, that could be a full day event. Yeah. Texting someone to get one story out.
Yeah.
Whereas a phone call, you're like, all right, we can talk for 5 minutes and I can tell you what's going on. And like, that's it.
Everything. And then we can text after or whatever about it. But I do think that it is really, really, really sad. And I was just telling my little brother about this a couple days ago, how much it's changed certain aspects of our society. For example, in my neighborhood growing up, we had a little cul-de-sac, and every time we came down the street, I remember as a kid, people were outside, first off, and people are hardly outside anymore. Kids were running around, everything. Every single person in our neighborhood would look up and wave at you and smile, and you'd talk to them, you'd ask them how their day was, or if you were passing them on the sidewalk, you'd say hello. Today, you drive down our neighborhood, people don't even look up. They could be standing at the end of their driveway facing where we're driving past, and they won't even have their phone out. Mm-hmm. They won't even look at you or smile or anything, and these are the same exact people who 10, 15 years ago, I remember as a kid, waving to, smiling to, they'd ask me, they'd say, hi, what's your name, or whatever. If I hadn't met them before, they would talk to you, and that's not even a thing anymore. It's just unbelievable.
I think that is like the one time in my life where you go back in time. It's like those days of like grade school.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the same thing. We had a little circle in our street, and like we had baseball field painted.
Oh, you did?
In the street.
Yeah.
And like we had the same group of people that played every day. And during the summer, like nowadays you get to summer vacation, it's like you're so worn down from everything, like you sleep half the day or whatever. I mean, there was no sleeping in.
No, you couldn't beat that as a kid either. You couldn't wait to get out of your bed to go see everybody. Couldn't. But does that still happen today? To an extent, I know it does, just from little cousins and from seeing kids running around and stuff. But I guarantee you, there's no way that across the spectrum of every single person out there that is happening statistically as much as it did when we were kids.
No chance.
Yeah, and I don't have studies on hand, but I bet you every single study supports that it's just not happening. And I think that is like absolutely crucial to growing up into becoming like a full grown adult in today's society, to be able to talk with people and hang out and everything.
I think that like shapes your character.
Absolutely.
I mean, you hang out with different people. I mean, everybody goes through problems. Like, you'll argue over if it was foul or fair.
Yeah.
Like, even the smallest things where like you get in a minor argument, you're like, all right, I'm not playing with you tomorrow.
It's social cues. It's being literally a human and participating in society. And it goes back to also sports. We're both proponents of sports. I mean, it teaches you a lot about a person, about leadership, about growing up and maturing. And that's something, when you're talking about being a little kid in your cul-de-sac playing baseball, that's from a young age that you start to learn all these things that might put you ahead of somebody who sits inside and sits on a tablet all day.
Yeah, for sure.
It definitely gives you more opportunities, at least, to improve on those aspects.
I mean, I think for both of us, when we look at sports, I mean, that was our entire lives for 15 years, if not more.
I mean, I can't remember a single free weekend from the time I was... I mean, and as far as your memory spans, I mean, I don't know about you, but I think now I'm like, man, what was I doing in second grade when I'd come home from school? I have no idea.
Not a clue.
I mean, I remember some like significant events here and there, but like, what would I do on a daily basis? And that changed every year. I mean, every year when you're a kid and growing up like that, and even now, I mean, we're still a part of it. I'm sure many people would tell us, man, you guys are so young, you have no idea. And we know that, we hear it plenty, but every single year is so different. I have no idea what I was doing back then.
No. I mean, everything changes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, sure, you have your basketball practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 8.
Yep.
You know, you have that set schedule, but, like, what was for fun back then? Like, were we outside every day? Maybe.
I could tell you some of those things, some of those aspects. I was a woods kind of kid. We had a nice little woods back behind our house, and I mean, I was always back there with my neighbor Zach. Ironic, but I was always back there. But like, I mean, where did I put my backpack at when I came in the house? I can't even remember. I've changed rooms when I was young once too. Like I was in a separate room. I was with my brother, and then all of a sudden I got my own room. When did that transition happen? It's the stuff like that. Was I doing homework? Did we have homework?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Everything is just like there are certain moments that like definitely stand out.
Yeah.
But it's like all those years, I would say for like, I mean, pretty much all of grade school, they're all the same.
Yeah.
It's all just 8 years of your life, but like some awesome moments that you can like describe in full detail, but you couldn't tell you what age you were, like nothing. Like it's just the smallest things.
The cool part about it, though, is that a lot of that is built around like the little communities that we had. I mean, you had your best friends and the same crew, just like you talked about that was in your cul-de-sac or whatever that you were running around with. You had your little group that you would get together with every weekend or in your free time throughout the week, and you guys would go do whatever your thing was. And I mean, that was a blast.
It was, and the thing was, it never got old. You would do the exact same thing every day for months, if not years, and it never got old.
Never, ever.
Ever.
I mean, we'd run through the woods in the same areas, and we'd just like be like taking off branches and stuff and just piling them up or whatever for no reason at all. And it was the most fun we'd ever had in our lives. I mean, but that could be attributed to just a child's brain versus where our brain's at now. I mean, you lose that creative aspect. I would love for a day to just be able to go back and look at my daily life now through the eyes of a child. I mean, that might be bad for a day. I mean, I hope that I don't see anybody. Like, if I could just go through it by myself without seeing anybody, because people would be like, what happened? Something's off with you. But, yeah, I think that would be really, really cool to be able to see that.
Me too. The times have changed.
They definitely have. But you know what? For the better. I mean, life goes on. And, I mean, we definitely had an experience. Everybody had an experience this past year. But, I mean, good time to be alive again. It's getting really exciting. I mean, everything's opening back up. It's feeling normal again. Summer.
It is. I feel like there's no better time than right now.
Yeah.
We get to baseball games. We get to concerts.
Yeah.
I mean, football season's starting back up here soon. And it's just, I mean, all these outdoor events, I mean, we're back.
And being so young and having something like that happen to the entire world, we get to, I mean, I don't know about you, but if everybody could just sit down and really think for a second, and everybody's lives should be a little bit different, because you just appreciate all those little things so much more. There were some good times during that. I mean, like family time, getting to be little kids again, and like staying at home with parents and all that. And I mean, I cherish that family time, but like what you're saying, the baseball games, the concerts, just seeing your family and friends normally, going to the grocery store and just getting out there in the world, you can just appreciate all of that so much more now than you did before going through that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, none of us saw it coming.
No.
You couldn't prepare for it.
Yeah.
Like, and now that we have made it after, what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah.
I mean, it has been a long time. And we're finally back to a new normal.
New normal.
It'll never be the old normal. But then again, do we even remember what the old normal was?
Yeah.
So,
that's an interesting thought, because I'm really, I mean, you do, but you don't remember like what it entirely was like running around. I mean, even now, although things are opening back up, it's still not entirely the same, and not everybody's ready to go back fully. There's a lot of people out there that aren't ready for that and aren't looking forward to it.
Which is totally fine.
Yeah,
you know, everybody's on their own schedule, and I think that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I think that everybody should be able to make their own choices about their health and the risks that they want to take, and their own personal risk assessment, how far are they willing to go and everything.
Absolutely.
Although right now I say it seems like a good time to start that process of getting back. And I mean, our health mandate ended the 2nd of June,
yep.
and everything, which is really exciting. Hopefully, you know, we don't have any rises in cases, but great time to be alive.
I mean, it's a gradual thing.
Yeah.
You know, everybody will take their time and get back into the new groove, whatever that is, over time, and eventually, hopefully, that we could just move past this and get to the next stage.
Giving hugs and everything again,
Yep.
and hugs and kisses, and seeing your family, seeing your grandparents.
I mean, even just having a large family gathering at a park.
Yeah.
I mean, just anything where you can actually meet with groups of people again and
Yeah.
feel comfortable with it.
Yeah. it'll be definitely interesting. It'll be even more interesting as we continue on because you never, just as we didn't know what was going on in the beginning, every month seems to feel different throughout this thing. It's in some way, shape, or form we learn something new, or there's a new order, or there's a new recommendation. Every month feels different. I wonder what the fall, as people return to colleges, as people return to schools and the classrooms, what is that environment going to feel like? What is it going to look like? I mean, who knows what's ahead for that? And I'm sure things will continue to change as we go along.
Right. I think it's impossible to be able to predict. I mean, we've seen it. It's impossible to predict what's going to happen. Like, we didn't know how long this was going to last. I mean, we really had no time frame on it. None. So it's one of those things where now that we are kind of exiting this stage, it's like, where do we go? Yeah. And I think it's a learning curve for everybody. I mean, when we go back to school, I mean, professors, we're used to having online classes. Did they get too accustomed to that? Did we get too accustomed to being online?
And I'm sure we did.
I'm sure we did too.
Because it was an adjustment at the beginning. I mean, professors didn't know whether to do synchronous, asynchronous, or what was going to happen with that. I mean, I've gotten certainly comfortable just being at my house and being able to do school on my own time. Being back in a classroom and having a set schedule and everything, it's definitely going to be an adjustment again. But I mean, hey, that's life.
Yeah. Always adjusting. Yeah. Never being content.
Yeah, I'm with you. We gonna call it a day?
That's it. All right. Episode number 1 in the books. If you like what we're doing, be sure to subscribe to this channel, like and comment on the video. Follow us on all of our social media accounts. The links will be in the description. And that's it.
And we'll see you next week.